We're grateful you stayed. Now, we're going to be talking about how our state-owned enterprises have been performing. We're going to look at the 2020 State Ownership Report and break down a few matters for you, especially as some people are saying some of these state-owned enterprises that are not working out for us as a country should be let go of. Joining me in the studio, Isaac Kofi. Ike, a very good morning to you.
Hi, Ben. Good morning.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Refreshing to have you back.
Sure.
So let's do some analysis on the 2020 State Ownership Report. Let's start with the bare bones of it. I know you're going to commence with the different sectors they fit into.
Yeah.
Let's get into that.
So the 2020 State-Owned Enterprise, captured 46 of the State-Owned Enterprise SOEs, 11 of them being from the financial sector, 10 being from energy, 9 from manufacturing, and then, the rest follow, infrastructure being 4. So in total, the report analyzed 46 of these, SOEs. And let's look at some of the findings. In terms of their revenue generation in billion cedis, using 2016 as the base year, on aggregate, state-owned enterprises generated 28.55 billion cedis in 2016, and this rose significantly to 37.91 billion cedis in 2019, then to 45.23 billion cedis in 2020. So you could see, a significant increase.
Upward trajectory.
Exactly, from 28 billion cedis in 2016 to over 45 billion cedis in 2020.
Almost doubling between 2016 and 2020.
Exactly. So the next slide talks about SOEs revenue by, we selected top 10 of these SOEs. So we started with ECG being, in terms of revenue, the highest. ECG in 2020 was able to generate an amount of 13.8 billion cedis, and then followed by Cocoa Board, 10.74 billion cedis, and then the rest follow with, in terms of the top 10, the Ghana National, Gas Company being there with 817 million Ghana cedis in 2020.
Interesting, isn't it, Kofi, just to look at that figure. In spite of the fact that ECG, and recently they've been on a drive to get even state enterprises or state facilities to pay them up. The Finance Ministry has come into question, KIA, among others. So even as ECG has been bleeding funds in terms of private citizens and even corporate bodies and state entities not paying what they are owed, they are still the number one performing.
Exactly. When it comes to revenue generation, they are the number one in terms of the top 10, generating over 13 billion cedis in 2020.
It also gives you an idea how much more they could be doing if all of these enterprises were actually paying.
When we look at the liabilities, you could see a different picture beginning to emerge when it comes to ECG.
Right.
So with this slide, it talks about the loss, the aggregate loss in terms of these 46 SOEs that were analyzed. So in 2019, the loss was pegged at 5.16 billion Ghana cedis. That's quite staggering. 5.1. That could be a whole ministry's budget for like 2 years. And then if you should look at 2020, there was a significant improvement. The loss dropped from 5.16 billion cedis to 2.61 billion cedis in 2020. So that was significant in terms of the loss. Now let's focus on the liabilities.
So those are not individual losses. That's an aggregate of the net losses.
Exactly. So if you look at the 46 SOEs that were analyzed in this report, the aggregate loss from 2019 to 2020, that's what we have. And then if you look at the liabilities for these 46 SOEs, whilst the losses seeing a decline, liabilities on the other hand is going up from more than 97 billion Ghana cedis in 2019 to 119.55 billion cedis in 2020, Ben.
And Kofi, just to chip in, so the liabilities, of course, would come to erode whatever gains have been made in terms of profit. So it means that it's basically one step back and maybe 3 steps backward. If you look at the gargantuan sum, we are looking at almost 120 billion Ghana cedis.
Yeah,
because in 2020, we were looking at around 45 billion. And then you have liabilities of about 3 times that figure. Almost 3 times that figure.
Over 119 billion cedis in just a year. Your liabilities alone stands out 119 billion cedis in 2020. Now, if you should break these liabilities down in terms of the top 10, ECG, when we looked at revenue, they were leading.
Around 13 billion.
Exactly.
But let's look at their liabilities.
In terms of liabilities as well, they are leading again with 22.27 billion cedis in 2020. So
that means on their figure, their liabilities, add up to another 9.2 billion.
Absolutely.
In terms of what profits they've made.
So ECG was leading, followed by Cocoa Board. The same picture is emerging here. Cocoa Board, in terms of liabilities, also around 15.23 billion cedis in 2020, followed by GNPC 11.35 billion, and then VRA 9.7 billion cedis, and the Ghana Ports and Harbors 4.79 billion cedis in 2020.
So the one that was last there was the GNGC when it came to what they had accrued in the period. But here it is the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority that is there. And we have the Ghana National Gas Company coming right before the Ghana Water Company Limited. But what can you say briefly are the contributions of these entities when it comes to something like employment?
Yeah. So with this 46 SOEs, currently government just added, the Airtel Tigo and then the Petroleum Hub Corporation to it. So meaning right now we are around more than 50 of them. So around 50 of them, they employed over 40,000 people in our economy. And then according to the World Bank, SOEs on a global scale for the past 10 years have been contributing to about 50% of the global GDP. And then their assets alone, in terms of on the global scale, is around 45 trillion. And so these are not, simple things I can just do away with. Because in Ghana alone, they are employing around over 40,000 people in just a year. But one thing that's really worrying is when it comes to their costs. So if you look at something
the cost of running.
Exactly.
Basically.
So if you look at something like their direct costs, operating expenses, all being above 20 billion. If you also look at staff costing, being more than 4.7 billion cedis. And if you look at general administration and expenses, also being around 6 billion cedis. And so you could see that although they are important, when it comes to their cost, they are really draining the country a lot. So it's high time that some of them that can be, we have JVCs, the joint venture companies. Exactly. Right. So if some of them can be converted into JVCs, or maybe privatize some of them.
I was about to ask you exactly that, and that was why I was asking Dr. Clement Apaka and Dr. Aduma Kukisi. As has been mentioned by some top crack economists, they're saying let's focus on those entities that are profitable and those that are not, that have shown a trajectory of profitlessness. Let's do away with them. We either privatize them or we find a way of redirecting the resources so that we can get benefit, because every business wants to make profit.
Exactly.
Unless it is a non-profit or not-for-profit organization. So your thinking is that is a valid approach.
But if you should go into the figures, you realize that two of these sectors, we spoke about 5 of the sectors. The energy sector and then the agri sector alone, when it comes to the staff costing, they are contributing around more than 50% in terms of how much we pay out as salaries and remunerations. Or the energy sector and the agri sector alone, about 2 billion cedis in a year.
And not surprising, because as we've been told, agri and industry have grown twofold over the last 4 years or so.
Yeah.
And so it means that the dynamics in those industries, these are any of those SOEs in those domains.
And in the agri sector, that's where you find Cocoa Board, where they pay around 1 billion Ghana cedis as compensation salary, staff cost in a year. Cocoa Board.
Interesting dynamics with our state-owned enterprises.
But you will see that.
But one thing remains, that we must do more with them if we are to attain our goals and develop better as a country, and of course create more jobs as well. Isaac Ofieje, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And that's how we get to cap off the conversation this morning on the AM show. But before we go, you have to pay income tax on any income you earn in Ghana, even when you do not live in Ghana. When you earn any income through a business transaction, income tax must be paid by the business by withholding the tax amount and paying same to the GRA on your behalf. It happens to me, it must happen to you too. And so we must all do the right thing. Happy birthday to Joel Treba. a senior sales executive of the Multimedia Group Limited. Joel, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday as well to Lydia Amankwa, a staff of Cope Board. We're just talking about them. Happy birthday to Ivy Amewugan, Volta Regional NADMO boss. I hear you're watching the show every day. Kudos to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to Dagma Owusu Apia, and that is from Albert, our cameraman here at the Multimedia Group. And to you, Araba Kumsin. Ramsey, happy birthday to you as well. Well, that's how we wrap the show this morning. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Don't you forget, we come to you with major news bulletins at 10 and at noon. You can catch the Pulse at 3 p.m. as well. Do stay for the rest of our program.